Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to day 2 of GameSpot's live coverage here on the show floor at E3 2014. The people are stampeding in, and our show is getting underway with a game that I am super excited about. Had a big announcement during the Microsoft press conference, a new monster coming to Evolve, and joining me are Phil, Robb, and Chris Ashton from Turtle Rock Studios, here to talk about the game. Good morning, guys.
Good morning. Hey. Good morning.
Super excited to have you here. I've been lucky enough to get the chance to play Evolve a few times, and coming into E3 was my #1 most anticipated game, so
wow.
I'm feeling pretty good. And you guys have it playable over here. Have you been having a lot of folks come through? How's the response been?
It's been awesome. Overwhelming, yeah. I mean, nothing, you know, our line is like, that whole area around our booth is just completely crowded with people pretty much all day.
So who's coming out on top mostly? Because Evolve, you know, pits 4 human hunters against 1 human player monster. Who's been coming out mostly? Monster? Hunters? How they been faring?
You know, I'm not sure. It kind of goes both ways. It really depends on, you know, who's in the game and what they do. So,
all right, well, let's talk about that new monster, the Kraken, debuted during the Microsoft press conference. You know, previously we've seen Goliath, sort of that big Godzilla-esque monster. This one, bit of a different sort of frame, bit of a different skill set. Let's talk about the Kraken a little bit.
Yeah, he's he's a little bit like skinnier, a little bit leaner.
Okay.
Doesn't have as much health, doesn't have as much armor, but the big thing is he can fly. So, yeah, he can fly where Goliath is locked to the ground. Goliath can leap around, but the Kraken can stay in the air and jet around.
So it's not. Is it a glide, or is it like I can flap?
It's a little bit squidly, you know, like a squid under the water, kind of squirting around in the air. Exactly. And so because he's in the air all the time, he's got ranged attacks. So he's really a kind of mid to long range monster as opposed to Goliath, who's just a bruiser.
Cool. Well, we're actually going to see a match play out now. This, of course, the hunter dropship, sending them all in. Now, we see 3 go ahead, and we're going to see this from the perspective of 1 specific hunter. Is that correct?
Right. Yeah, this is Hyde. It's one of our new assaults. We are also showing 4 new hunters. So the big thing with Evolve is you get to choose different characters and different monsters, whatever suits your play style best. They each have their own play style, their own unique gear. So this is Hyde. He's our assault. You can see he's got a big minigun right there. He's also got a flamethrower, which is a lot of fun. So he's our shortest ranged character, and there's Kraken right there.
Early contact with the Kraken, making a getaway, and then trapped, of course. This is one of the huge mechanics that the hunters try to employ, trapping the monster in that dome and containing them.
Yep.
Yeah, that's the trapper's job. Maggie, who's in this, Maggie's got, besides the dome, she's got a pet Daisy. So our first pet in Evolve here, and
Your first pet?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, yeah. And Daisy's kind of like a bloodhound. She'll sniff out the monster and shortcut to him. She'll also revive people if you go down. Daisy will come over, kind of like that Saint Bernard in the cartoons.
Yeah, the little keg of like whiskey or whatever around the neck. But Daisy herself is like a little monster, and then that's the trapper class.
Yes.
And so we've got the assault here, of course, focused on dealing damage. The flamethrower is a real up-close weapon. The minigun got a little more space to it.
Right.
We are seeing, actually, these ranged attacks come in from the Kraken. So give us an idea of what the Kraken's trying to do now and what attacks it's using to keep the hunters at bay.
Well, it was trapped in the dome at stage 1. It really, the monsters grow over time. They get bigger and stronger as they eat wildlife. They grow over time. So the monster here really doesn't want to fight at stage 1.
Yeah.
And so trapped in the dome, the best defense is a good offense. So Kraken chose to fight and try to push the hunters back. And once the dome went down, now the monster ran again.
Is going to run and try to eat some of the wildlife in the map, because these maps, it's not just 4 hunters and the monster in there. There's a whole ecosystem happening.
Yeah, there's a lot of really nasty critters, particularly in this new environment.
You put more nasty critters in this one. Oh,
yeah.
all right.
Yeah. I mean, we've got mega mouths, which are basically like sort of, they actually look like rocks. They just sort of sit there, but then when you get close to them, they sort of come to life.
And they'll swallow you whole.
Yeah, they will swallow you whole.
Oh, jeez.
And then there's Dune Beetles, which are these sort of big, nasty
They're super tanky.
Yeah, insect tanks, and they'll actually eat the food. So in a way, they're sort of competition for the monster.
Right, because the monster needs that food to stage up.
Yep.
And so that's a matter, if you're playing the monster now, the monster's hunting, trying to eat, and then staging up makes the monster grow larger and more powerful.
Yes.
Right, and the monster gets to spend points on abilities and choose kind of what, strategy-wise, like, what abilities they want to invest points in.
All right, so we've got another dome down on the monster, and so, the Kraken wants to be at a bit of a remove. Can it sort of cling to rocks, or does it sort of have to mantle on top of them?
It can climb anything.
Yep.
But once in combat, it can really just stay in the air as long as it wants.
But what if, what does it have for melee, like last ditch, just getting in there and kind of
that's the
tentacles swinging the tentacles around?
That's the
like
interesting thing with the Kraken is that while you're ranged, and to be clear, like as a player, you can choose to play the Kraken, and while it's got a lot of ranged attacks, you really oftentimes have to get in close just to finish the job. So you'll find that you'll fight at a distance, and then when you see a weakness, when you see an opening, somebody who's low on health, then you'll dive in, you'll kind of squirt in really fast, slam down on top of them, and then finish him with melee.
Yeah, and when playing as the monster, it's so, anytime there's 4 hunters like right in the group, that's a disadvantage for you. You want that separation. You want to scatter the ranks, create a little chaos, and then go for the down.
Right, because the 4 hunters, we've got 4 different classes. They each have.
No.
That's a Mega Mouth. That's that's the one that Phil was talking about.
Fortunately, his buddies were there to get him out of it. But
right, yeah. If that's the thing, it's kind of if you're caught off alone, then you're in big trouble.
And so that's when I have played as Goliath. That's one of the things I love to do was to know where these big bad wildlife creatures are, and then kind of kite the hunters by them, because then the hunters are not only engaging the AI wildlife, but then you can engage and create even more chaos.
That's an awesome strategy. We actually I saw some guys doing that yesterday. In the booth, it was like, nice. They're thinking, right?
Yeah, it's because once I will admit I learned that the hard way. I just wandered into a swamp, and then all of a sudden a giant crocodile clamped down on me and had me in this death spin.
Right.
And so,
Yeah, the tyrant.
Yeah, that's a real good way to learn in Evolve, is to have that terrible stuff happen to you, and then you just want to do it to other players.
Yep.
Right. Yeah.
Well, that's part of the fun, right? Learning how to make your way through the world and not get eaten.
And the AI creates these opportunities for either team. I mean, for the monster, it's largely food, but as Phil said, that Dune Beetle will compete with the monster for food. We'll take away the food in the environment. So, and then for the hunters, obviously, it's oftentimes a threat.
And there we see Daisy, the trapper's pet, and Daisy will Does Daisy sort of always have a bead on the monster, or does Daisy have kind of a radius?
She does have a range.
Much wider.
She has a smell radius, so if the monster gets too far away, Daisy can lose her, and then it's up to Maggie to kind of lead her around to try to pick up the scent again.
I just love that Kraken animation. It really is that squid-like, the tentacles like sort of trailing behind.
Right, and there we saw a vortex blast, and that's really used to push people around, to push them back. So like, as Kraken, you can use it when somebody's trying to revive somebody who went down and went in cap state. You can push teammates off of them and try to keep them. And you can also use it to separate people.
And yeah, so let's talk a minute about how you win in Evolve. If you're the monster, you can win by just killing all the hunters.
Right, you can wipe the team.
Yeah.
Alternatively, you can go to stage 3 and then take out the objective, which in this case there's a power relay which is hooked up to this hydroelectric dam. And if that relay is destroyed, then the dam gets destroyed. So the monster can win in one of 2 ways, and the hunters always have to eliminate the monster.
The hunters only have that one objective.
Right.
But it can be very tricky. In this match, already going on pretty long. I mean, sometimes you get an early stage, sort of the monster like blitzes and can get people alone while they're not really geared up yet. But these long battles that go to stage 2 and beyond are start to get really, really tense.
Yep, for sure.
And as the hunters get in cap, so what we kind of have in Evolve is it winds up being a war of attrition between the two teams. The damage that the monster takes is largely permanent. So even though as you stage up, your pool of health gets bigger, you're going to carry that permanent damage with you always.
Yep.
Likewise, on the Hunters team, if you go in-capped and then get revived, you have a strike, which limits your maximum health. So you have a reduced max health. So over time, the monster loses some permanently loses some health, and the Hunters do the same. So towards the end, it's kind of like who's going to run out first.
Yeah, and we see now that we've got a Hunter down because that dropship counter comes up. When a Hunter takes those 3-strike in caps or, just gets eaten alive.
Yeah, the monster can eat people once they're dead, so the monster can eat them entirely.
But then the Hunters have a chance. It's like a 2-minute timer roughly to come and respawn. So,
right.
It gets to the point where as a Hunter, maybe you're hedging your bets a little bit and trying to hold off until you have a full team again. But then, the Hunters the monster's going to be using that time to feed and stage up, and there's all these moments where you have to make these strategic decisions.
Yep.
Yeah, there's always a lot of choices to make, and that's one of the fun things about Evolve. And it starts off when you initially start the game. You got to choose which character am I going to be? What's our team strategy going to be if we're Hunters? What character perk am I going to take? What monster are we fighting? What species of monster? And as the monster, you get to choose where you spend those points on abilities. What am I going to invest in? Kraken's got a lightning strike. He's got Banshee Mines, which will stay in the ground, and then when Hunters get close, they'll activate, and then they'll home in on them. And then the Vortex Blast, and an Aftershock, which is a radial. It's a very powerful radial blast, which is really good at damaging multiple Hunters, but you got to get in close to it. And
yeah, you got to be close to them,
and that's kind of Kraken's weakness, where Goliath is very strong up close.
Yeah,
Kraken's a little bit weak up close. So it's kind of cool to have an ability that's really powerful that kind of coaxes people into that dangerous situation.
Makes them take that risk, and then maybe it pays off, or maybe you're in even more trouble than you were before. Let's talk for a second about the Hunters. I think it's important to make the distinction between character and class, because you have 4 classes of Hunters, and within each class, a couple different characters who are significantly different, yet have similar sort of through-line abilities.
Well, they fulfill the same role on the team, but the way they do that is very different from character to character.
So we've got 4 classes: Assault, Trapper, Support, and Medic. And so you're always going to have those 4 classes. You always have a Medic represented in the game. If you don't, it's a losing scenario. So we decided, as the developers, that we're just not going to let people lose the game before they start the game, right?
Yeah,
so we force
that. That's considerate of you guys. I appreciate that.
But within that, we give you your choice of character within that class. So, for example, Medic is not my favorite class, but
hold on, this is it. This is like it for the Kraken, is it?
Yep. Oh, there he goes.
Oh, he's going down in flames. That flamethrower from the Assault doing serious damage. Sorry, let's go back to the Medic you were talking about.
Yeah, so Medic, Trapper is my favorite class, but I do love Lazarus, who's a Medic, because Lazarus is so different. Lazarus, once people die, Lazarus can bring them back. Doesn't have to wait that 2 minutes for that dropship, so it's really, really powerful.
Which can be huge, but then there's the other Medic who I've played as that has sort of a healing beam.
Right, and Lazarus does not have that. So what happens is in combat, Val can keep people alive when they're being attacked by the monster. Lazarus can't do anything. He has to wait for them to die first before he can bring them back, and that's a risk, right? If he can't get there in time, or if the monster eats him, there's no body to bring back.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, the eating is just. That's a really fun thing as a monster to do. Is eating wildlife is satisfying. It's hearty, but then something about downing the person and then just eating your buddy. Yeah, absolutely. Oh man! All right, Evolve. You guys showing it off here, and it's slated for release this fall. Yes?
Yeah, October 21st.
October 21st. Any chance of a demo you guys coming out with? Give people a little taste of how that monster hunter dynamic works.
I'm not exactly sure. I don't know. I know we'll do something.
We've got a beta coming.
There we go. Now we're talking.
That's right. We did announce a beta.
Tell me about the beta, Phil.
Yeah. So it'll be on the Xbox, and I'm not exactly sure when it's coming, but it is.
Okay.
So people will get to try it out early.
And it's a good chance for us to like
Exactly.
check the servers and check the initial game balance and stuff like that when it's out in the wild.
You guys been playtesting like crazy, but there's no substitute. 3.5 years. Whew.
Yeah, every
there's
night.
No substitute for like thousands of people, right?
No,
that whole data scale up is.
We're guaranteed. We'll put it out, and they'll figure out a way to break the game. You know, maybe it'll be cool, and we'll be like, hey, that's cool. Let's do more of that, or maybe it'll just flat out break it. And
You
we'll
just
have to
patch
fix it.
that up,
Yeah.
All right,
But,
Phil, Chris, thank you
Thanks.
guys so much for coming on and showing off Evolve. One of my favorites here at E3, and actually a nominee for GameSpot's Best of E3 2014.
Yes, thank you for that.
Congratulations.
Right on.
I'm going to try to come see you guys later. As you
right.
can tell,
Yeah.
super into it. So thanks for coming on.
Awesome, man.
Folks, Evolve kicking off our stage show today with a blast, but we've got a whole slate, 6 hours, 8 hours, 8 hours of live programming from this stage and from our stage 2. And we're kicking off next. We're coming back next with Kingdom Hearts 2.5 HD Remix, but first, it's up to the GameSpot newsroom for the latest news here from E3.